Welcome to the Connors Corner segment of Ask the Lawyer. A few years ago, we talked to the actor Mike Connors, whose real name was Kreker Ohanian. He was of Armenian descent, and he told about the atrocities that happened to his family and how his family escaped from Armenia back in World War I. And, you know, that's a tragedy that's been very underplayed or forgotten in the history of Western civilization. But thank God right now we have a movie called The Promise, and we're very pleased to have the executive producer of that film, Ralph Winter. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for talking about this.
Okay, so what's the movie about?
The movie's about a love story. It's this journey of a small town pharmacist who goes to Istanbul to get more of an education, become a doctor, come back to his small town and help. And in Istanbul, Constantinople in those days, 102 years ago, he is confronted with the racism and persecution and nearly ground up by the system of the Ottoman Empire as it's declining in the beginning of World War I. So it's really that sort of hero's journey. It's a love story along the way and all sorts of complications. But the backdrop is the beginnings of World War I and the Armenian Genocide.
Okay, now the Armenian Genocide, it's not an attractive story. What led you to make this film?
Well, this was Kirk Kerkorian's desire. It goes back many years, tried to make it many times when he was running MGM and couldn't get that studio that he owned to make the movie. There were resistance from, business interests in Turkey, all sorts of other obstacles. And there's been many smaller versions of this story that have attempted to tell it, but Kirk really wanted this on a big canvas. So about 6 years ago, he enlisted one of his doctors and commissioned him to be the producer, Eric Israelian, who is a significant physician here at UCLA in Los Angeles. And he found Mike Medavoy, and they found Terry George, and then they found me. And so, we put this together. Bill Horberg as well, who lives in New York. So they developed the story. I came in to help get it made. And my interest is that I live in Glendale. I've marched in some of these demonstrations before. And ironically, my birthday is on April 24th.
That is a coincidence. There are coincidences in this world. Now, who's part of the cast?
Yeah. Christian Bale plays a reporter who's in this part of the world in 1915, reporting on these issues, bringing it to the public. Oscar Isaac plays Mikhail Bogosian, who is our hero of the story, and Charlotte Le Bon is the love interest, an Armenian woman from France and Paris, who is initially, a girlfriend to the Christian Bale character, but part of a love triangle that develops over the movie. We have a number of other guest star roles. James Cromwell plays Ambassador Morgenthau, who was a key historical figure in all of this. Jean Reno plays a French Admiral. Shoresh, I can't pronounce her last name, plays the mother of Mikhail Bogosian. So we have an all-star and international cast.
When you mention the fact about a reporter, you're talking about the American ambassador to Turkey. What was the American government's role in 1915?
Ambassador Morgenthau was a key American Jew who was, fighting for to get this story told properly and to protect American citizens. And so he was key in protecting, people like Chris, the reporter, and helping him get deported and not, getting him out of prison. That's what happens in the story. Morgenthau is a historical figure, was key in pushing back against the Turks and fighting for the Armenian community. And he was honored by the Armenian community in later years when he came back to the U.S. There's actually several books written about him.
Okay, and the French Admiral? What's the part of the French Admiral?
And the French Admiral is leading a battleship that comes in to save the 5,000 or so people who pushed back against the Turks, would not submit to being deported into the desert. And he played a key role in saving these people at the beach. And that's the third act at the end of the movie.
When Mike Connors was on the show, of course, he passed away earlier this year. He was saying that some of his relatives, they observed German officers who saw what was happening to the Armenians. And he felt from that they learned the lesson that the world really doesn't care when genocide is committed.
I think that's true. The German officers there were giving battleships. That's part of our story. You'll see that early on in the movie. And of course, notoriously, Hitler is quoted in the early 30s of saying, "Who remembers the Armenians?" Pointing to that genocide and what Turkey got away with and condoning it. So, unfortunately, Turkey and Germany were, complicit with their bigger agendas, and relocating was the euphemism for, destroying the Armenian population.
Now, when you say destroying the Armenian population, a lot of people out there may not know the history. Do you want to just give them a quick summary?
Sure. And by the way, we just premiered our documentary, which is called Intent to Destroy, at Tribeca last week. Joe Berlinger, who's a renowned New York documentarian, was with us during the production and did his own research. And that documentary came out at the festival last week. There was some thought that the Armenian community was somehow colluding with the Russians to destroy the Ottoman Empire. And so after some disastrous battles in 1913 and 1914, Talat Pasha and a number of others pointed to the Armenians as a possible, backstabbing on their efforts to defeat Russia. And so they began this move to deport them, to relocate them, to eliminate the population. And they controlled any photographs. So any photographs that were taken of people that were, killed or murdered or hung or destroyed was strictly controlled by, the Turkish government and the labs, and they would hunt down the people that took those photos. So there's very little that actually comes out of there, but there were some actually German soldiers in some of their photographs that came out. There's a tremendous amount of research on this, and Krikorian has also donated $20 million to the UCLA Law School to, highlight and investigate and to, authenticate more and more of this about the Armenian genocide as well as other genocides that have been happening around the world.
I don't remember learning about the Armenian genocide in school. Why is that?
There's been business interest to contain it. It is, it never got the attention it deserved. I think the Armenian community up until now did not have the resources to get the story out. But, 2/3 of the Armenian population was destroyed. Armenia was the first country to embrace Christianity, and so it became a Muslim Christian thing. It became a Turkish Armenian thing. It became an economic thing. All of those forces were at work creating this, and they did a good job of trying to hide it. But the Armenian community has been pushing back about this for a very long time. I don't know when the book 40 Days of Musa Dağ was published, but there's a wealth of information. Even our prop guy doing the props on the movie on his own, because we shot in Spain, he's a Spanish and served no threat. He went to Istanbul to look and see what he could find, documents, what he could find, photographs, flags, props, things that he could use in the movie, and he found it very easy as sort of a non-threatening visitor to unearth some of this stuff. So all of the props, letters, are either originals or they're replicas of what he found in Istanbul today.
Now, do you get any brushback or pushback from the Turkish government of today?
Oh, sir. We had certainly prominently, and there's an article in today's Wall Street Journal that you should look at about this, which is also about the documentary, that one of our actors from Mexico was called in by the ambassador to Turkey and said, "Why are you doing this? This is fake. You know this isn't true. You're involving yourself in something that is wrong and is, a lie." We did not have any problems during photography, but I did have a security team with us in the background the entire time. Anytime we moved from Malta or to Lisbon or back in and around major moves in Spain, we called the U.S. State Department to be sure that, we weren't going to run into any problems. And then, of course, when we premiered the movie in Toronto in September of last year, we screened the movie 3 times for maybe 2,500 people. But within days, we had 60,000 reviews, negative, about the movie, which we traced back somewhere into Eastern Europe. Even today, you'll find there are more reviews for this movie than there is for Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast has done over $1 billion in the box office as of last weekend. We've done about 7. So we haven't been threatened physically, but there's been a campaign to, discredit the movie. There was a movie that came out, the Ottomans Lieutenant, I think it was, came out about a month ago, which was the opposite point of view, but didn't do much business, but definitely was out there.
It's their position that the genocide did not happen?
Their position is that there was a civil war, and lots of people died. Turkish people died, Armenian people died, but there was no intent to destroy. That's in particular what the documentary addresses specifically.
Okay, so the name of the movie is The Promise. See it quickly, because it's important to see a film at the beginning of its run so you can be able to see it a few weeks from now or a few months from now.
And it also sends a message when you do it early. It sends a message to everyone else that the movie's important. And, it's a typical challenge and obstacle we have as filmmakers, that people that go see the movie love it. They enjoy it. How do you get people to go see it ahead of time? That's the trick. We know the Armenian community has come out and is overwhelmingly supporting the movie. The key is, how do we get non-Armenians to see it? Because they're the ones who don't know this story and don't know the origins of this.
Thank you for bringing history to life. Ralph Winter, producer of The Promise.